Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This is going to be our first Outer Rim episode that we've done
There
in
you
a
go.
few years. Last time we did this, I think we were doing Walking Dead episodes before we gave up on it.
Yeah.
So this one's going to be about, if you can see my background here, House of the Dragon, Game of Thrones. We're just going to talk about the series as a whole with a little bit of a focus on the season finale, which just happened a couple nights ago. All right, come back and join us right after that. All right, welcome back, and we're just going to jump right into our discussion, our initial thoughts of the series as a whole, and the season finale of House of Dragon, season one. I'm going to turn it over to Greedo and
Oh, really?
kind of give you the floor first and see what you have to say.
Well, first off, I was not a fan, like looking forward to the show. I was happy it was coming and everything, but I was a huge Game of Thrones fan. Just to preface this with, I read the first book back in the 80s. That's how long ago, that's how long
Hmm.
Martin's been writing this stuff.
Yeah.
And I tried to get everybody I knew to read the first book. I can't remember if the first book was called Game of Thrones or what, but it had the big twist at the end, and it was so well written. It's so shocking at the end, especially. But I loved the way it was like historical fiction disguised as a fantasy world, because the first book doesn't have a whole lot of magic, so you can almost believe you're in a real world
Hmm.
where magic is superstition at this point. People talk about it. Yeah, it used to happen, but we haven't
Yeah.
seen it, but it's all written down and people talk about it. And so I love that aspect of it. And I had no idea all these years later we'd still be waiting for the end of the story, or I don't know if I would have. I probably still would have gotten into it, because the first few books were just freaking amazing. So anyway, I'm a big fan of that, and I'm a big fan of the good part of Game of Thrones. It just we've seen a lot, you and I,
Yeah. Yeah.
and Gundark, and it just became harder and harder to just be a super fan of Game of Thrones with that last season, especially. And just kind of the ability to just remain a fan and let go of the problems and not worry about them. That's not me. I'm always going to
No.
dwell on
Yeah.
the problems.
I'm
I
I'm
just
I'm
can't
a
get
little more
past it.
forgiving than you are, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have fun with it. I still have fun with it, but I
Sure.
got to admit, like Lost and some other great shows that I was a huge fan of, the ending of Game of Thrones almost ruined the whole thing for me, to where I haven't even looked back at all on it, and not looking forward to the last book or the next book or whatever. It just kind of soured the whole thing for me. And so I'm glad to say this show has brought me back, a huge amount, and it just crept in. It was like they've done a great job, in my opinion, from beginning to almost the end. I felt like this last episode was one of the weakest ones they've had, as far as me understanding the characters and what's going on. It started to remind me, it started to slip a little bit, remind me of just the frustrating, illogical parts of when you're willing to tell a story and you stick to that even when you can't get the details right to where it all makes sense, and
Hmm.
but you continue to stick to your gun saying, well, this is the arc for each character. I'm ready to throw arcs for characters out the window. I really am. I'm getting so sick of that as an excuse for writing bad arcs. Just saying, well, we've got to go from somewhere to somewhere. Well, can't anybody just have integrity, and be,
Hmm.
even if it's bad integrity,
Right.
if it's a bad character, why can't you, stay consistent? It starts looking like inconsistency and weakness, in the writing. And so I've loved the show and it's brought me back, but I will admit to having some bad vibes on this last one. And especially, do you watch the after show thing where they do the little clips where the people
Oh
talk?
yeah, the little clips at the very end after the
Yeah.
credits. Yeah, yeah, I watched those.
Who is that guy? He always looks so smug, and he's the same guy from Game of Thrones. There's one guy that's left over from Game of Every time he comes on, I get bad
I
vibes.
get
Like, I
a,
remember this
yeah,
dude, you know?
I have a cringe moment. Yep.
Yeah, I cringe immediately. My cringe response is because he's the guy that said, like, well, then he forgot about the Iron Fleet.
Yeah, the Iron Fleet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had the balls to say that. I think that was him. And it's like he haunts me every time. It's like, don't even do those after show things.
Right.
It's setting
Don't
me
even
up
show your
for,
face, please.
yeah. Please remain silent. That's what a lot of people probably think about me. But anyway, what are your thoughts about Game of Thrones and this as a sequel to Game of Thrones and all
Yeah,
that?
well, honestly, my thoughts mirror yours almost exactly.
Hmm.
I was a huge fan of Game of Thrones up until I'd say roughly through midway through season seven. When they started kind of hitting a rough patch late in season seven, and then season eight just, ugh, it's
Yeah.
just and it ended on such a bad note for me that, like you were saying, it just soured me on the whole thing.
Hmm.
And I hate that because the first 5, 6 seasons, was one of my favorite shows of all time. I couldn't wait each
Oh, it's
week for the new
incredible.
episode.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
loved that show episode after episode, and for the ending to be so bad that it completely turns me against it. Don't even want to go back and watch the old early episodes anymore because I can't help but have that bad taste in my mouth for how it
Hmm.
ended. But and House of Dragon has brought me back again, like you. It affected my desire to even watch the show. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
new Game of
it's
Thrones,
take it
big
or leave it.
deal.
If it's terrible, it won't ruin my life
Right.
because Game of Thrones already did that.
I have nothing. Yeah, I have nothing invested in this. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't. I wasn't really looking forward to it, but I at the same time I wasn't gonna not watch it. I want to at least give it a shot and see what it looked
Hmm.
like, and I'm glad I did because I enjoy it. I've really, like you said, it's brought me back to a certain degree into that whole Game of
Yeah, this
Thrones
world is still a good
family. Mhm.
setting and it's still interesting. I think that part of this downfall of these shows and things is victims of their own hype, and
Mhm.
also when they set the groundwork with stuff that really begins to dawn on you how good it is,
Mhm.
there's nowhere to go but down, because you have to orchestrate all these elements that you've set up to make a satisfying ending. And a lot of these shows and things, including Rings of Power, set themselves up as mystery boxes. And we've seen over and over again that that's a recipe for disaster at the end,
Mhm.
because you fuel the fire with all this internet speculation and hysteria, that gets bigger than the product itself, and you
Yeah.
inevitably end up disappointed
Yeah, you can
because
never live up to the hype. Yeah.
no, we've told all these stories a million times. It's hard to surprise
Mhm.
anyone consistently, and you end up Walking Dead, Game of Thrones, killing characters for no reason, moving
Yeah.
them around the chessboard for no reason, making them do illogical things just to have shock. It got to where it's like we have to shock people, we have to top ourselves, and
Right.
it's
It has to be
like,
more shocking
yeah.
each season. Yep.
And the best moments end up being just conversations between the characters, or
Right.
things like that. So, and the big hype moments just kind of
Right. Yeah, I've never
yeah.
understood the need for that. I mean, I get the concept of we gotta go another step further, each time to more
Hmm.
shocking, more shocking. I get the psychology behind that, but to me it just doesn't work because you and I have talked about the example before. I think that Star Wars film or Star Trek films rather fell into that trap. For a long time, it's like once they blew up the Enterprise, they had to blow up the Enterprise every
Oh
single
yeah,
time, or
yeah.
it wasn't going to be good enough.
What's the
Oh,
point of a
let's blow.
close up
What's
on
better?
Kirk
Let's
and the
blow up
crew
two
looking at
ships.
something unless it's the ship blowing up and falling out of the sky? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Everything else is
Mm,
going to seem anticlimactic compared to that, which I
yeah.
don't agree with that mentality at all. There's no reason why we can't just have a good movie
It's
or a
like
good
when
show.
they killed Kirk's son. That was the most
Right. Yeah,
pointless freaking thing for a
absolutely.
villain of one movie who wasn't a great villain.
Right.
It was just
Right.
to falsely up the stakes. You got to care first, and you
Hmm.
introduce Kirk's son in the second half of Wrath of Khan, and then kill him off in the first half of the next movie. He barely gets 30 minutes of screen time,
Hmm.
one
Exactly.
meaningful conversation. Just being Kirk's son isn't enough, and
Right.
I bring this up because in this episode, spoilers, people, we're going to talk spoilers from here on out.
Yeah, we
So I
are
know you've seen
talking
it.
spoilers. Yep.
I know you've pillaged someone's HBO account to watch it. So don't lie. But this kid killed off in this episode felt like just a sacrificial lamb to me
Yeah, I
for
agree.
the hype of the show. It They cast him to look innocent. He's never shown any depth of character. It's like if we're to accept what we've seen, anybody that's young with blonde hair is a monster, and anybody who's young
Hmm.
with brown hair is trying not to be. But
Right.
and this kid was obviously the sacrificial lamb. And
Hmm.
this is where I get into the problems with this episode, which I probably shouldn't jump right to it, but because there was great things about this episode too. But I did not understand the whole idea of sending them as messengers
Mm-mm.
and not
Yeah, that made
soldiers.
zero sense to me. Yep.
No, the setup did not deliver there. Like I could not understand that. I'm like, does she not understand what's going on? And
Yeah.
we're supposed to sympathize with Rhaenyra. Um, and even in the after show, one of the writers said she's been training for this her whole life. And I was like, but has she?
Mm-mm.
Because they haven't shown it.
Yeah, no.
They've never shown her in any situation where she had to make kingly decisions.
Hmm.
She's always moping in the background, and they've emphasized how disenfranchised she is all the time. That people
Yeah.
still look past her for decisions and still don't acknowledge her, even though they swore oaths. So how can she be trained if you don't
Yeah.
show it?
No
You
one's ever
know,
looked to her for these decisions.
no,
Yeah.
I like the character, but
Hmm.
to me, I have no idea whether she'd be a good ruler or not
Right. No
based
idea.
on what they've shown us.
Right.
She would be possibly good for women because she has that perspective. But
Hmm.
to me, the one they keep saying you should have been queen, the queen that wasn't or whatever,
Hmm.
she'd probably be the best one. She
Probably
seems
so.
the
Yeah.
most reasonable and everything.
Hmm.
But I kept thinking this episode, do they not understand that they had a coup at the palace and they literally hung people and killed them
Right.
and tortured people and stuff? It's like how much more of a declaration of war do you need? I mean, in
Hmm.
medieval times, there isn't any
Right.
more than that.
Right.
And if they had been there, they would have been arrested,
Hmm.
and possibly killed and stuff. So as much as we're supposed to sympathize with Rhaenyra and the older queen and the Alicent queen looking for peace, they seem
Hmm.
like they're completely unrealistic in this world to me
Yeah.
in the
Hmm.
last couple episodes. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. They haven't done a good job of showing her in the position of leadership. It's always like you said, she's always in the background when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
leadership decisions and king's councils and things like that. She's never been the focal point. She's never been looked to, especially by, obviously we're talking about the male dominated culture that's in, Game of Thrones, at that time, that's medieval times, like the now famous line from early in the season, they'd sooner see the Iron Throne destroyed than have a queen
Mm-hmm.
sit on it. It's like a man or nothing. But
Yeah.
and because of that, they've never put her in a position. So to make that call of, oh well, she's been trained for this her whole life, like no,
We'll
she has
show it a
not.
little bit. Yeah,
Yeah,
take
show
five
it.
minutes and
If that
show
is the
it.
case, then show it. Yeah.
We saw her reading a book. Does that
Hmm.
qualify as training
Right.
for the king? I mean, she can
And just the
read. The
fact that
one
the
we
king's
saw,
her
the one guy
father,
couldn't read in this episode. The one ruler,
Yeah.
he had to get a meister to come read a letter for him. Thought that
Hmm.
was funny, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, and it's like we're supposed to, I guess, they're giving us a choice, a gray area, but we're supposed to side with Rhaenyra in this episode and not with Damon. And he comes out and does the villainous thing of choking her out,
Hmm.
which kind of this guy goes back and forth from being a monster to stepping it back every time. But we
Hmm.
can't forget that he brained his ex-wife or whatever,
Yeah.
when she was laying helpless on the ground.
Hmm.
So he made that choice. I mean, we assume he did. He's walking towards her with a rock. They didn't actually show it, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but we're supposed to sympathize with her and not him. But
Hmm.
honestly, in this situation, he was right. Just like when what's Ned Stark, when they came to him the night before he was arrested and said, "You need to get out of here
Hmm.
and rally the people around you that are good. Take them somewhere so we can come back and take this place, or you need to, seize power." And he always did the honorable thing, and it was the wrong thing.
Yeah. It was
It's
the
just
honor,
the
like you said, it
wrong
was
thing.
honorable, but it was wrong. Yeah.
Yeah, and it cost his kids' lives.
Hmm.
thousands upon thousands of lives in war and everything. But it's almost like this stuff's inevitable because of
Hmm.
the way the world is set up. And so I don't understand how you can be prepared to be queen your whole life and not
Right.
understand the situation you're in.
Agreed. Yeah.
And she showed understanding at points where she knew who her enemy was, but then because of her father, they all dialed it back. And I also thought it was interesting that she didn't show much grief for her father at the beginning. I know she really couldn't,
Hmm.
and she did have a miscarriage upon the news, so I guess you could say that.
Hmm.
But she moved on immediately to her kids, and I don't know. A lot of these characters are just so cold and ruthless
Hmm. Yeah.
that
Agreed.
yeah, it's like they bring some humanity to someone like the king, and he really doesn't even get a mention. It's like
Yeah.
um and anyway, but what do you think about Damon? Because I think this character is a big reason why I watch and a
Yeah.
lot of people watch.
Yeah. He's the highlight of the show for me.
Yeah, he's not the biggest reason. This is a great cast and good
Right. Yeah.
characters
The
and
cast,
everything.
the cast is great. It's not a one man show by any means. I'm not saying that.
But what's his deal, do you think? Because, like I said, he's always one step away from taking power. Like he came in wearing a crown. It was obviously a fake
Yeah.
crown
Yeah.
earlier in the season. He's always pushing the buttons, but then when he's called on it, he steps right back into line.
Yeah, he backs down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I find that interesting. You're right. It's almost like he has this sort of self-destructive vibe to himself, when it comes to his place in the royal succession line and all that. He showed his anger and all that stuff in the beginning of the season, when he was passed over and he left and was, kind of acting petulant about the whole thing and went off to war and did all this stuff and then kept threatening like he was going to come to King's Landing attack, but never did. And then yeah, it's almost like he thrives on chaos.
Yeah,
And he's afraid that if he takes that kingship or takes that line of succession, then it's everything's going to calm down too much for him. If you know what I mean.
probably. Maybe
You
that's
know,
part
I
of it.
mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, if he's king, certainly he can declare war and do whatever he wants. But I think he almost thrives on not being king. It's almost
Yeah,
like
he's got
he
that.
gets his energy from the fact that he's been
If the disrespect
stepped
stopped,
beyond.
he wouldn't know what to do with himself,
Right,
kind of.
right,
Yeah,
exactly.
being second son or whatever he was,
Hmm.
and the fact that he took basically a prostitute and said, "This is my princess" or whatever,
Hmm.
and
Yeah,
gave her
exactly.
titles and stuff like that. It has almost a Caligula vibe to it, of like
Yeah,
Senator Fish or whatever. I'm gonna
yeah,
make this
yeah.
goldfish
Agreed.
senator. um, so, but yeah, he's confusing to me. Is like I kept saying when I was watching the episode, when is this guy finally going to step up and be who he is?
Right.
Because we saw it in the battle scenes where
Hmm.
he rolled the dice, and just devalued his own life to the point where he finally kind of found the respect of others by
Hmm.
putting up. He put up instead of put up or shut up. He put up finally,
Right.
and but in this episode, it seemed like his tantrum. Unfortunately, they put him to me on the right side of the equation. So so you're forced to kind of argue against a
Hmm.
guy who's telling you the right strategy.
Yeah.
But I thought there was the whole season has had a battle of the sexes kind of vibe to it,
Hmm.
very obviously, and male and female energy and all this. And it was super super apparent this episode
Oh
when she's
yeah.
having the miscarriage and she's saying, get out of me, like
Hmm.
she's trying to literally expel any part of this guy out of
Right.
her, even though she
Exactly.
mourns the kid.
Sure.
She is like, I can't deal with this right now. I have to
Hmm.
be a whole person. This and I don't see eye to eye with the dad. And it's like it's almost like a divorce was going on there. And we cut to the his dragon, intimidating the king's guard and all that, and saying,
Hmm.
you can have an honorable death or you can die screaming.
And die screaming.
And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but his dragon has the male sexual energy, right?
Right.
I mean, it looks, if any of the dragons look like the male appendage, his
Yeah. It's
dragon
that
does.
one. It's his.
And
Yeah.
he's been established as semi-impotent,
Hmm.
except in certain situations that have to do with
Right.
his weird personality. So we had female energy and male energy going against each other in that scene. And to me, it's like, what is this show about? Because I thought we were setting up a war between these branches of the same houses, but it seems like
Hmm.
there's also a war in this house. Like I almost expect
Right.
them to go to war now, you know.
Right, almost within yeah, amongst
Hmm.
themselves, exactly.
But again, he kind of dialed it back. And also, you notice he went in singing to another dragon in that one scene. They
Yeah,
didn't
that's I
follow it
think
up.
that was yeah, they didn't follow up, but I think that was just at least what I took from it, that that was basically him saying, because early in the episode they claimed about how there's all these dragons without riders,
Hmm.
dragons that just kind of live alone, haven't been quote unquote tamed yet, and his whole argument for going to war was like, we have way more dragons, let's just
We have the
go over there.
nukes. Yeah.
Yeah, we have all the nukes. Yeah, basically. So I think that was just his effort at trying to start taming one of the other dragons.
What for though? He's already got one. Can you
Well,
have
no,
two?
because they have to tame all the ones that they don't have yet, so they can make sure they have claim to all the dragons.
I know, but he can't ride two at the same time.
No, you can't ride two at the same time. But I mean, maybe there's another part of
He's
the
just going to
process.
hoard it
Maybe it's just a part of the
to keep the other
process.
people from taking it.
Right, right. Yeah, it's
I
like at
mean, do
least
dragons get jealous?
if he gets there, probably.
I mean, it's
If he gets there and imprints on it, maybe that somehow starts the whole
yeah.
process.
I just wonder if he's overreaching. If this
Yeah, it
is
could
what's
be.
going to cost him eventually, is
Hmm.
he's messing with nature, trying to
Right,
control too much because his ego and everything, and because he knows what he thinks is right to do, but his wife isn't going along with it.
right.
And
Agreed.
he's been neutered again. He has to take second fiddle to her.
Hmm.
Um, it was a little shocking to me though that he basically did his own coup, and then as soon as she showed up or her son showed up and put and down, he fell back in the line.
Hmm.
He did question her and stuff, but and the whole choking scene, I didn't get that. It's like it seemed oddly out of character for those two characters. I didn't get what they were going for there. It's like
Remind
is
me. I'm
it
trying to remember the choking scene. What was
um
that?
well she said clear the room, and they were on
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Dragonstone,
yeah. And
and
he ended
everybody
up, yeah,
left
grabbing her.
because he was
Yeah,
questioning her. He was like
right.
kind of hysterically
Yeah, I
questioning her in
remember it.
front of
Yeah.
everyone, and then she said, the prophecy, the prince who's chosen, the long dark or whatever, and he
Hmm.
grabbed her by the throat and said, your father was obsessed with BS, and this is real. I don't know if
Hmm.
he's trying to wake her up or what, but it was obvious you don't do that unless you're trying to dominate someone or kill them.
Hmm.
One of those
Right.
two things or both. And um, so I didn't totally get that because these two, what part of what made them work for me was that even though they're unnatural and everything, they have, for lack of a better word, kinship.
But I'm pumped.
But
Yeah.
um, but they're like kindred spirits. And also, the shocking thing about Rainier to me was that she was always moping in the background, but the one thing she chose was him.
Hmm. Right.
She chose this guy to be her consort.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of her expression of her agency, is that she related to him
Yeah.
more than anyone else. His energy or whatever, his rebellion, his anger, and
Yeah,
his
I think
ability
there
to,
really are like male female counterparts, to be honest with you.
yeah,
I think they have this a similar personality. I mean, obviously there's certain differences to that, but I kind of look at them when I watch the show as like the male and female of the same person almost.
yeah. I just wish they had established her motivation better as far
Hmm.
as like what she wanted to do by being queen. Is it just because she thinks she deserves it or is owed it, and is only not given it because she's female, and that's her whole motivation? Or does she really want to carry on her
Does she
father's
genuinely
legacy of
want to do it?
peace?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the
Hmm.
father's established as a long reign of peace. And
Hmm.
so is that what she really wants? And does she really take seriously this prophecy, which we see kind of in this episode? So she brings it up and she does take it seriously, but they didn't really establish all that. So I don't know what she's trying to accomplish other than self-preservation a lot of
Hmm.
times. And so I wish I knew what she represented, like what kind of range she's trying to bring. Um, Whereas Allison just seems like a huge ball of anxiety all the time,
Oh yeah,
and
at all
weird,
times. Yeah.
misplaced kind of loyalty and energy and stuff. Like she looked at this kid who's raising the sword in front of the crowd in the last episode with pride,
Hmm.
and it's obvious he's a
Oh,
monster to anybody with eyes,
yeah, he's like a Joffrey 2.0,
Yeah, and
before Joffrey existed.
she thinks she can be a female hand to guide him, not realizing that once he gets the big dick, the big sword
Yeah,
in
he
his
doesn't have
hand.
to listen to her anymore. Yep.
No, no, not at all. He doesn't listen to
Yep.
anyone, and
Hmm.
power goes, right to the head. So,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
anyway, what did you think about the effects and the sets and all that stuff in this episode?
In the final episode, I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. I liked it. I loved the not to get too far ahead, but I loved the chase through the clouds. You know,
yeah.
I thought that was really well done, especially how they took it all the way up above the storm. You know, and they suddenly,
Hmm.
I thought that was a good kind of parallel to what they were trying to create in the viewer. You know, it's like,
Yeah,
oh, it's calm now, everything's good, he's out of it, just to kind
yeah.
of snatch that away at the end. You know,
Yeah.
and I thought
Yeah,
that was
you
kind
knew
of
it
an
was bad
interesting way of
news as
doing
soon
it.
as soon as he got as high as he'd ever gone in his life. You knew it
Oh,
was bad
sure,
news.
yeah.
He's like, I've never been this high before.
Uh-huh. And never will again.
Right.
But yeah, overall, I thought the effects were well done. The dragons look good. Um, yeah, I enjoyed
Yeah,
it. I didn't have really any
I would
issues,
be
and I
curious how
think the
much they
show is a
spent.
good combination of practical and CGI. You know, practical effects and CGI.
Yeah,
I've
because
always
you
thought that.
don't really dwell on
Mhm.
it very much. You just
Right. I
watch
mean,
to
every
enjoy the
once in a while
episode.
you'll catch a sketchy green screen or something. You know, I've caught
Yeah.
a couple of those in these last few episodes, but generally speaking, I think it's really well done. What about you?
How does your dragon burst through the floor of this giant stone mausoleum, and you're on its back, and you're just like
Yeah,
perfectly
that's
fine, you know? Waiting to just dust yourself off a little bit. It's like the dust didn't even sit on her; she's still holding it or
right.
whatever. And they're
Yeah,
able
that's a
to
great
like make
point.
eye contact. She should just be covered
Like she
in,
wouldn't have just been completely
yeah,
smashed into the
yeah,
ceiling.
you're not a dragon, no matter how much you think you are. You're not one.
Right. You're just an
Fire is
ant on
one
its
thing,
back.
but yeah, but being crushed to death by stone and between a dragon and stone is another thing. And then another thing that I thought was really silly in this episode, and maybe they have an explanation, they probably do, is Sir Keith. I call him Sir Keith because I don't know his name. The guy with the kind of different accent,
Uh-huh.
and the beard. He's a twin. He
Yeah,
shows
yeah.
up with the crown. I mean, this guy's like some kind. He's like a freaking MCU character or something. Because how did he get to Dragonstone? First off,
Right.
the older queen flew on a dragon straight there, and he got there minutes after her, running
Yeah.
on foot.
Yeah.
He's an ancestor of the guy from the episode in the north where he ran across the entire tundra
Yeah.
with the
Yeah, when they
message.
totally screwed up the
Yeah,
timeline where
so
it's literally
we're
it's
in
like
trouble. Send this guy on foot. 8,000
yeah.
miles in frozen tundra with no supplies.
He did it in 20 minutes.
Right. It's just a short jog. Get going. But no shows, no snowshoes, nothing. I would have loved. He's just chased by wolves the whole way.
That's funny.
He shows up and slams the door behind him. You won't believe what's out there. But oh yeah, the message. But yeah, this guy shows up. He crosses the Bering Strait or whatever on
Hmm.
foot. It shows him he doesn't have a steed or anything. It's like Mr. Everything. He sneaks the queen out, and then he grabs the freaking crown off the dead king's head. What the hell? Where did he get that?
Yeah, where did he get
And
that? That's what I want to know.
and
Yeah.
then he hands it to her, and they just turn around and put it, and instead of it going down on her eyes,
It fits
it just
perfectly. Yeah.
fits perfectly. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, wait a minute here, something's
Right. That's a
fishy.
really good point.
So there's been some things like that where I just kind of bust out laughing
Yeah,
when I'm
yeah, yeah.
watching it. It's like, really, come on, can you just take a second and show him patting the crown? Or there's an inner band. I thought they look like there's two bands. Maybe they have it rigged where you can.
They
But
put an
otherwise,
inner band to make it smaller. Yeah.
Rhaenyra's skull is much larger than it appears to me. She has a ginormous brain,
That's
capable of
funny.
great calculations. But yeah, that guy amazed me though. He just showed up. It's like, dude, this guy's everywhere. It's like he's like a wizard in disguise or something. He's gonna throw off the.
Right. I think it's interesting too, since we're talking along those lines, and I know this is difficult with this kind of a show when you have such a passage of time, but I think it's interesting how one of the only people who never ages is Allison's father, the Hand of the King.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And he's
been
the
like
one with the
dozens
most
and dozens of years.
machinations.
It's been
Yeah,
decades, and
you'd
he
think
still
he'd
looks
be old as
exactly the
hell
same. Yeah,
because he's like carrying the burden of all these like plots and everything.
right.
Yeah, he never ages, and Damon really never. It's like
No, Damon,
never
that's
really
another one. You're
ages
right.
either.
They haven't aged him at all. That's
But
interesting.
you know,
But it works. It works.
yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't take me out of the story when I watch it.
He's got smooth reptilian skin to go with his old dragon thing. But he should do a oil of
Oil of Olay.
oil of Targaryen.
Oil of well,
Commercial.
with him, it could be oil of Tardis, you know?
Yeah, it exfoliates while I sleep. The cost is me eyebrows, but I trade them gratefully.
So so kind of getting back to your point about the illogical move of sending your two children as the
Yeah, this was the
envoys.
huge clang in
I
the
think that was
episode for me.
yeah, when that happened, I was like, huh? That's one of the only thing in the episode that really
Yeah,
just took me like, wait, what? You can't be serious,
no,
especially the younger one of the two, it's like, come on, he's 14, and I realized
and
that 14 is older back then, in that
and
time of
what
day
a
and stuff.
horrendous lack of planning when the guy you see your father dying, he's barely alive, he's a corpse, walking corpse with leprosy or something.
Hmm.
You know the dude's gonna drop dead any second,
Any
and yet
second,
you and
yeah.
yet part of your training as to be queen should be, I would think, traveling on your dragon because it can go fast, and
Hmm.
establishing connections with these people, not just have them swear to you 20 years ago
Yeah.
and then ignore them.
Right.
She should have been going around strengthening all these instead of saying,
Keeping those
"Oh,
bonds tight. Yeah.
we need allies so badly now that I'm going to send these 14-year-olds, into
Yeah.
mortal danger, and they're literally our only claim
To
to
literally say, you
continuing
remember 20 years
the
ago
line."
when you said that thing? Your father said that thing? Yeah.
Yeah, in medieval times, they're always going to go with the one with the heirs, the line with
Right.
the heirs. So if
Of
she
course.
starts
Yeah.
losing kids, which she's doing, she lost two in this
Hmm.
episode, the other side still has their kids.
Yeah.
They got, so I don't know. I bet, you got to look around for the Bran in the room.
Yeah,
This is the
exactly.
one who's going to end up with the throne. It's probably one of the little girls with the dreads. It's probably
Right.
going to end up as queen
Exactly. It's
at the
probably
end
gonna
of
end up going
this.
to one of
Yeah.
them.
Or the crazy one, the crazy chick. The
Hmm.
what was the Harry Potter character? Hell good, feel good.
Oh, yeah,
Uh,
the one who was, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember her name. Feel Good
yeah,
or whatever it was.
yeah, it was
Dr. Feel Good.
Luna Lovelace or
Luna,
something.
that was it. Luna Lovegood, that was it.
Lovelace.
Luna Lovegood.
That's the Harry Potter porn edition.
Yeah, love.
The point of the game, Harry, is to ride this broom and put your ball in the hole. You got to catch the snatch or whatever. The snitch, I mean.
Oh, that's funny. So as far as the way the episode ended, what are your thoughts on all that? I know you probably have a problem with just using the younger kid as dragon fodder, which I kind of agree with. I didn't see what
Yeah,
real point.
I
I didn't think they
mean,
needed to go that far with it to make a point.
I thought it would have been much more interesting if the kid had escaped.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
because I don't know these kids yet. The only scene I was joking about it when I was watching it, that the guy with the eye patch, he's upset about his eye,
Hmm.
but he obviously owns it. He's got a gemstone in his eye socket or something.
Yeah,
I mean,
Aemon.
that's
Hmm.
yeah, that's a very James Bond villain thing to do.
It is.
And
Yeah.
but I feel like he's still pissed about the pig.
Hmm. Yeah.
All these years later, he's still pissed that they paraded a pig in front of him when he didn't have a dragon. And it comes
Right.
back. It comes back to dragon envy. All this show is rooted in
It
that
was Dragon
energy
Envy. Yeah.
of who's going to own the biggest.
And the
And
most
he, and the kid
dragons. Yep.
and the kid was taunted, and he went for the biggest dragon energy
Right.
in the room, and
Right.
now he's got the big dragon energy, but he can't control it.
Right.
um, that was the only thing I thought was cool, was that they made it. He didn't want to kill his brother or whatever he
Right.
is,
Right.
his
They didn't
cousin,
just make
whatever.
him pure evil, mustache
No,
twirling evil, like I'm gonna kill you. Yeah.
no, and you could argue that he has reasons for what he's doing. That he's been
Hmm.
waiting years to vent this frustration,
Right.
and he was powerless to do so because he was being restrained.
Hmm.
And now he's exploring the edges of that restraint. And maybe if he got it out of his system, he'd pull it back. You know,
Right.
but now he's gone too far because he picked this giant dragon, the oldest dragon, and that dragon is like, "Hey, you're just another rider to me."
Hmm.
It's like, I know better. You don't
Yeah.
have full
Yeah.
control.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, the kid kind of asked for it by sweeping back and blowing fire on him. That was a potentially lethal move
Oh,
in and of
absolutely.
itself.
That sealed his fate right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
but
that
I
dragon was
did
not going
think
to fake that.
I did think that Lord of Storm's End. I didn't catch his name, but I liked him. The guy playing him was kind of different, and I
Mm,
liked all the subtleties or all the conflict he brought to
hmm
his dialogue and stuff. You could tell he was almost being held hostage.
Right.
So he was not comfortable in his own seat because he had, is it Amond, was over there with the one I
hmm
watched him, and the giant nuke was sitting out there, right beyond the
Right.
castle walls. and um, but I think that guy made a huge mistake not. I admired that he let the kid go and said escort him to his dragon, but he
Yeah.
should have said he's under my protection and taken him into the keep,
Exactly.
and then decide what to do later. Because sending them out into that storm, I know they feel like invincible on their dragons and stuff, but that wasn't the safe flying
That was
weather.
not the
It's
smartest
like,
thing to do. Yeah.
no, it was
Exactly.
terrible. You don't send a prince out where they could just never be seen again in a storm. And
hmm
also, this is another logical thing. I know I keep coming back to the bad stuff, but how in the world did Damon know at the end? How did he
No.
know that her son was dead? He was assassinated
Oh,
literally at like 30,000 feet. Nobody's there
right.
to
Yeah.
see
How
it.
did unless time has passed, I don't know. You're right. I mean that's just kind of
But does
a
that mean that
convenience of the plot of the script.
Does that mean that Amon went back and told everybody what happened?
I, could be. I don't
Because
know.
wouldn't he go like, yeah, last time I saw
Well,
him,
you
he
would
was
think,
happy
yeah,
and
you
he,
think he would just deny, like, I don't know.
yeah,
I was chasing after him, but I lost
yeah,
him in the clouds and never saw him again. Yeah.
right. Has
hmm
he called or texted? Because
Yeah.
he, he could he could be over in whatever the foreign land, with his buddies getting
Right.
drunk. Kids do this stuff, especially with dragons. But that's what I'm wondering is like, where was the proof? And surely mishaps can happen to people flying dragons around in storms and stuff. I mean,
Sure.
but that comes back to, I don't know why she felt compelled to listen to her son about send us or whatever.
hmm
And it was the wrong moment. It's like you don't scatter everyone in a desperate bid to get allies at the last second. You
Agreed.
know,
Yeah.
especially when they're just young and inexperienced. And everybody else in the room was 800 years old. All of her followers are like, let me pop my dentures in and see what the queen wants. I'm just gonna take a while to get there now. Any day now, I'll get down this hole.
Right.
And they're just old as hell. And why not send one of them?
Right,
You're
exactly.
old as fuck. You've lived a good life. Go bear messages. What happens is, roll the dice. What happens happens. But
Yeah,
you
exactly.
don't send the airs. And then one kid, his whole job that whole episode was to look startled and upset.
hmm
He's just like the whole episode. He's just what
Yeah, just look
what
visibly
what
shaken. Yep.
what? Granddad's dead. What? You're having a miscarriage right in front of me. What?
What? What?
What? And
I'm
now I
I'm gonna
gotta.
I'm gonna take the message on what?
My older brother's beating me down for no reason, and now I gotta swear an oath.
Yeah,
Uh,
you're right. He pretty much had
Now I
a
gotta give up my eye. Now I gotta. It's like, yeah, you knew it wasn't gonna end well for him. How come she didn't
no.
know?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I agree. So what are your hopes for next season?
Um, oh, I wanted to say on the effects, just real
hmm
quick, I wanted to
Oh
give a
yeah, sure.
shout out to the scene where the kid flies down to Storm's End. I thought that was just
hmm
amazing looking. I love shots like that,
Oh yeah,
and
like the sort of
you
the
get to
pan
see
shot where
the
he
yeah,
came
you get to see
around.
the
Yeah.
fortress, and
hmm
it's awesome to see those things realized,
Yeah. Oh,
and looking pretty
absolutely.
good.
Yeah, that was
I
fantastic.
imagine George R. R. Martin loves that stuff where they
Oh yeah, yeah.
show the like Heron Hall and
hmm
Storm's End and places like that he's envisioned.
Right.
And it also expands the world a little bit. The more locations you get.
Oh yeah,
Um,
exactly.
Next season, I had no hopes for the show this season, so I'm just
Right.
gonna ride it out. And everybody wants a big dragon war, but do you though?
Right.
Because it's
Are
like
you sure
that
that's
could
what you
be
want?
jumping the
Yeah.
shark. Yeah,
hmm
but I do know I don't want any more of this talk of peace because it's gone too far. And
hmm
anybody talking about peace is basically like the sequel to The Once and Future King, Book of Merlin,
Book of Merlin,
where
yeah.
T.H. White saw World War One, and instead of having Arthur die and Mordred die at the end like they're supposed to, he wrote a sequel where they made peace. And it's like totally
Yeah.
made no sense, but he was sick of war and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And a ruler's sick of war during a time of peace doesn't make sense to me because they haven't seen the cost of war. And also, it's just unrealistic. Sometimes war finds you, especially when you haven't been proactive enough and you see the situation coming, and all you have is trust, to make
Mm-hmm.
sure, all the oaths and stuff are old. There's no official in writing. Um, and I also thought the whole thing of him saying on his deathbed, the misinterpretation of the prophecy, I thought that was pretty weak too. But
Yeah.
it was more realistic because these things happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think Allison, she takes steps forward and then she just acts stupid. And I
Mm-hmm.
think to take his words literally on his deathbed when he's obviously in agony and doesn't even know who he's talking to was really odd. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
I know it was wish fulfillment for her,
Mm-hmm.
but it seemed almost out of character. Was she really gonna go down that road? Because you can't have a bloodless coup like that.
Yeah.
It's going to cost lives,
Mm-hmm.
and the way to get out of it is through marriage and stuff like that. They should have done something, uh, you know,
Yeah, to unite
to seal the
houses and
peace
things
if they
like
really
that.
wanted
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah, but to go underhanded and just swear her son in and stuff is real insecure move. And then I also didn't understand the older queen not taking some of them out in that throne room scene. I understand. I guess that's her character, but again, you're gonna pull off a stunt like that, and
You might as well take it all the way. Yeah.
yeah, and you kill hundreds of peasants. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my favorite part of it. They're getting the tail
Uh-huh.
sweep and the floor exploding,
Yeah.
and then when the dragon flew out, you just see tons of little bodies getting scattered.
Getting
Like,
scattered. Yep.
yeah, that's like yards. They're flying through the air as the dragon's knocking them out of the way, like bowling pins. You might as
Right.
well finish the atrocity. And it's like, hey, usurper's a usurper. Winners write the history.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely. Yep.
once that kid took the crown under false pretense, he's a usurper, period.
Yep.
you know so anyway, there's some things I just don't, this like modern ideas kind of, or
Mm-hmm.
modern, I don't understand why you would be a token of peace in this culture.
No,
Like
not in this culture. Yeah,
no,
that's not how it
and
worked.
tons
Yeah.
of people have died already and been murdered and stuff, and you're not going to learn from that you cannot be passive.
Mm-hmm.
The only safe place is, yeah, and you get into the whole the Star Wars link of, the only, you become so powerful, the only thing you're afraid of is losing your power.
Right.
And but it's literally life or death. You're either on top and you make the decisions, or you
Mm-hmm.
suffer, like
Right.
that Lord did, who they hung for no reason, just because he
Mm-hmm.
didn't bow fast enough or whatever.
Right. Exactly.
The gate was too slow to open.
Exactly.
He should have taken a tip from Sir Keith.
Yeah.
Hey, Sir Keith, how do I get to Dragonstone
Right.
in 5 minutes from here? It took 5 minutes for this damn door to open.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't know how you did it.
You're a miracle worker. Well, you row really fast, first off. It helps to
Oh,
have a
that's
white
funny.
cloak and have a twin so that nobody even looks at you. You do whatever you want. Taking crowns, taking scepters. You should see the other shit I
Exactly.
took that I never showed no one.
But as far as the next season, yeah, I'm just kind of taking it as it comes. I didn't have any expectations for this season. I obviously naturally, after enjoying the first season, I have a little bit more expectations for the next season. It just goes without saying. But I don't think I have unrealistic expectations. I hope that as long as they keep along this path that they're on, that it'll be enjoyable, and I'll like the next season as well.
They've
And I
got
haven't
an
I haven't heard anything about when it's supposed to be filmed or coming out or anything like that. Have you heard anything?
No, right? Because I don't keep up with the show, and
Right.
the more you keep up with a show on those details, the more likely you are to get spoiled on things. And my
Exactly, which
enjoyment
I
of
don't
this
pay
show
attention to
came
any of that
purely
stuff.
from, I
Yeah.
didn't read the book, Fire and Blood, or I didn't read that stuff. So this, it's been a pleasure for me to watch it and not know anything other than knowing from a Game of Thrones perspective that the Targaryens eventually weaken and all that and lose their
Hmm.
dragons and stuff. But that's been the fun of it, is not knowing what's going to happen. It's basically like a medieval soap opera,
It is, yeah.
with the blondes and the dreads
Hmm.
and the brown haired. But Yeah, next season, I hope they continue to play to their strengths, which is the cast, and I hope that losing Viserys isn't a mortal blow to the show. I hope,
Hmm.
like like a lineage, I hope they pass on to other characters. I don't. I think it's a bad sign when you kill some characters off without really establishing them.
Hmm.
I can imagine how powerful that scene would have been if you knew that kid,
Right. That's the
and
thing.
he's
If you already
mauled that
knew,
way at the
yeah,
end. It
absolutely.
was. I mean, it was bad enough. It was effective as symbology. Like you've got a predator with a giant dragon, you've got a young bold kid trying to evade, and but we rely more on our history of other stories. Like
Hmm.
the young kid on the plucky dragon, small dragon is supposed to succeed.
Right. Right.
But that doesn't enter into this story. So
Mm-mm.
I would rather have known that kid a little better.
Yeah.
But they focused on the central character so much that when you lose one like Viserys, which was inevitable and necessary, he's literally the linchpin for the rest of the plot for him to go. You have to wonder where they're going to make it up. But they've done a great job of introducing new characters and bringing them in, and them, you being able to latch on what they're like pretty
Hmm.
quickly with
Yeah.
minimal effort and minimal dialogue and stuff. And I hope they can continue to do that. They've had some great potential characters go really fast, like Damon's first wife, or not his
Hmm.
second wife, his second wife.
Second life. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and even his first wife, she seemed like she'd been a cool character.
Right.
But so that's a good and bad sign. If they can continue to pull in great actors that with charisma that make us want to watch and learn more about the new characters coming in, it'll be just fine.
Yeah.
This show isn't as deep as Game of Thrones was as far as characterizations, discussions, dialogue, but they accomplish a lot with a little bit. And
Yeah. I think that owes partly to do with the way they handle the timeline. The
yeah,
fact that they did speed things up. They didn't just dwell on, well, we've got to just trudge through year after year after year after year to get to where we need to get. They would just, after every couple of episodes, boom, it's been 6 years, it's been 10 years.
yeah, because you think at first you're watching a show about what's going to be a child queen,
Hmm.
because we've had child kings before and stuff like that. But that's not the story. They had to make a decision. Where do we start the story? Are we going to do time jumps?
Hmm.
And Rings of Power didn't do nearly as good a job with that.
Hmm.
They
Yeah.
tried to tell a huge story with characters from all over the map and make it in a long weekend.
Hmm.
It's like
Right.
I just don't
Right.
believe everything happened in one weekend in Middle Earth.
Yeah. It's not the
So
Star Wars sequel
yeah,
trilogy after all.
no, it's like, well, I went to Valinor. Yeah, the place you can't get, and I swam back. And then there was a giant super volcano. And there's this island 8,000 miles away. I went there. But anyway, I think we agreed that this show is good.
Yeah,
And maybe I'm
absolutely.
putting too much of my trepidations on the vibes I got from this last episode. They slow burn all the way to this point, and then this one felt more fast. But
Hmm.
big events were happening, so it did accelerate things. But I just seeing that guy and really put a dark cloud over me. It's like, oh no, this guy, he's still there. But he's done some good work, I guess.
Yeah. I
Game
mean,
of Thrones early stuff, and then this
no.
is going well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so far this has been a good one. This has been a hit, I think. All right, any final thoughts?
Um, more be careful what you wish for. I want to say more dragons, but then I remember
Yeah.
when I saw Jurassic Park and I said I want more dinosaurs.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. Just do a good show, damn it. Just do a
Right,
good show.
exactly. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Lean
Yep.
into your strengths, and don't get so complicated, so damn complicated. It was one thing that another thing that kind of set me off in this episode was they started listing all these characters. Well, go see
Hmm.
this guy and this guy and this guy. I'm like, oh my god, are we gonna get 8,000 cast again like Game of Thrones?
Hmm.
And I just saw an interview with George R. R. Martin where he said, "Don't underestimate your audience. They can handle a huge cast of characters." Yeah, but can you?
Right.
I can handle
Right.
it. Can you? Because I don't think you can. and, and so I don't want to see 8,000 characters if you can't keep a handle on them.
Right, exactly.
So it's much better keeping the story focused. We've already got a ton of characters. Do stuff with them.
Yeah. Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
it's been a great surprise, and I'm
Yeah.
glad we finally got to talk about it, or I got to talk about it, and you listened to me talk about it. Thanks for that.
Yeah, and I enjoyed the season overall. I'm definitely looking forward to season 2 and see where it goes because we've got a few loose ends out there. We'll see where they take those. So
And I do want to point out that this is not just our outer limits,
outer,
our
outer rim, yeah.
our outer rim comeback, and House of the Dragon first episode. This is also our Super Bowl preview
Yeah,
podcast.
exactly.
Here we are in October
That's right. Already
of
predicting what's going to happen
2022.
in February.
Yeah, we'll be famous like the dog that can pick Kentucky Derby winners.
hmm It will be interesting to see if we actually finally get our Super Bowl.
Yes, we did that. We did actually have our Super Bowl once.
True,
The
true.
Rams Patriots,
Yeah, Rams
which we
Patriots
won't
did
even get
play.
into this, but because
Yeah,
no one on earth would understand.
no.
You have to be from Memphis, like us,
Yeah, to
to
really
even
understand what we're
begin to
talking
understand.
about.
And you can't.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
I'm officially retiring the Cockney accent after this episode. Talk about not leaning into your strengths. Should never have dusted that off. But anything medieval is still Monty Python. It comes to
You
mind.
automatically go into bad Monty Python
Yeah,
impressions.
I can't tell you how many times they do an establishing shot and they go, "It's only a model."
Exactly.
On
It's only
second
model.
thought, let's not go there. It's a silly
This is
place.
a silly place. All right. Well, that wraps it up. Hopefully, we'll have some more content coming soon. Schedules have been a little nuts lately, and just haven't had much time to record
No,
many shows lately. So
and dark is
we haven't even touched Andor
spice
yet, and it's
brains.
already been on for 6, 7 episodes now. So and we haven't even talked about it yet. So maybe
Yeah,
we'll come back around and do a second season wrap on that second half of the season wrap on that.
I think it's a bold move to do a whole series about articles of speech, and or
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like that's
Well,
pretty well.
I think
It's
they're
like
pulling it
but
off.
the where's the sequel? But the you know.
Well, the original title,
Also,
the original title Conjunction Junction was already taken. So
yes.
so
I just can't. Every time they say Mon Mothma, I've always thought that is the dumbest name in the history of Star Wars names.
Mon Mothma.
I used to read the expanded universe books, and it'd be Mon. Why don't you do this, Mon? People calling her Mon. I'm like, come on, you can't keep a straight face. It's like,
Well, the actor playing her husband did.
I know he
Because he's
did.
called her Mon a couple times.
Yeah, there's the Mon Mothma people don't see.
Miss Mothma.
Miss Mothma is my best friend Godzilla. Godzilla versus Mon Mothma.
Right.
But
That's
but no, you got to admire the acting ability to take a name like that and run with it.
yeah, and make it sound right.
It's some heavy duty acting ability.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, join us next
But
time.
also,
Join us
episode
next
7.
time, and hopefully we'll be back sooner rather than later. And we'll see you then. Thanks for joining
Oh,
us.
look for my reaction video to this last episode of House of the Dragon, but it will not be safe for work or anywhere else. So watch at your own peril. Just have a little
Explicit
peril.
language warning.
Nudity, drug use, violence, incest. It's House of Dragon after all.
Nice. Oh, that's funny.
Eagles!
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Club. This is the first time we've done an Outer Limits episode, or or not,
Do you
or
not
Outer
adjust
Rim,
your set?
one or the other. Outer Rim, Outer Limits, same thing.
Night gallery
Night Gallery,
in honor of Halloween.
the cheap Twilight Zone spinoff. Outer Limits.
You will know the terror of watercolor. Finger painting, the horror.
Starring William Shatner.
Roddy McDowell.
And Hume Cronin.